From 1859 to 1922, the two main political parties in the United Kingdom were the centre-right Conservatives and the centre-left Liberals. This two-party dominance came to an end when the leader of the Labour Party, Ramsay MacDonald, became the Prime Minister in 1924 as part of a coalition government with the now third-place Liberals. This poses the question, why did the Liberals decide to coalesce with Labour? Wouldn't it have made more sense for them to form a government with the Conservatives to lock their main rivals for the centre-left vote out of power? Well, first, let's look at some context. This election was only the second after the end of World War I. During the war, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was a man named David Lloyd George, who was a Liberal. His top priority was winning the war and therefore ignored the needs of many on the home front. So much food was being exported from Britain to the Western Front that food shortages began, and those who couldn't afford food went hungry. Lloyd George attempted to fix this by implementing rationing during the final year of the conflict, but by this point it was largely seen as too little, too late. After the war, the Liberal Party fractured between supporters of Lloyd George, who wanted an all-party coalition to continue ruling the government until all wartime problems had been solved, and the supporters of H.H. Asquith, who wanted the government to be ruled by the Liberal Party alone. The two factions effectively functioned as separate parties during this time. In the end, neither would get their wish because the first post-war election saw the Conservative Party win a comfortable majority, with the Liberal parties coming in a combined third place behind Labour. A big reason why centre-left voters abandoned the Liberal Party was because they were seen as a big reason why Britain entered the war in the first place, and after 4 years of fighting and nearly 1 million dead, most thought it just wasn't worth it. Additionally, many of the poorest Brits had to deal with going hungry due to food shortages, and Labour, with their socialist leanings, portrayed themselves as a party by and for the working poor and would never let such shortages occur. Just over a year later, the new Conservative Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin called for an early election. Baldwin had taken office after his predecessor, Prime Minister Andrew, I'm not saying his nickname Law, had passed away, and was therefore looking to legitimize himself via new elections. Well, this didn't work well for Baldwin because his Conservative Party lost their majority, although they did remain the largest party. Meanwhile, Labour came in second place while a reunited Liberal Party came in a close third. Now the country was in a position where two of the three main political parties would have to work together in order to lead the nation, and these two parties were Labour and the Liberals. Now, the Liberal Party believed that Labour were a group of dangerous radicals whose proposed social programs and watered-down socialist tendencies would be disastrous if implemented on the national scale, yet they formed a government with them anyways. The reason the Liberals did this was actually quite simple. They thought if Labour were given a chance to run the government, within a few months they would screw things up so badly that they would become political pariahs and never be a major force on the national stage ever again, and the Liberal Party would reclaim their rightful place as the major centre-left party of Great Britain. To be frank, this didn't happen. During this period, Parliament expanded access to affordable housing, increased unemployment benefits, increased veterans' benefits, increased benefits given to the elderly, increased funding for public school education, provided free meals for school children, standardized traffic laws for the increasingly popular automobiles, and opened 70 infant welfare clinics across the country. These policies were popular, and after 10 months it became clear to the Liberals that the predictions in regards to a radical Labour Party destroying the country wasn't going to happen. So they ended the coalition by voting no confidence in Prime Minister MacDonald, triggering a new election. Labour ran on the record while both other parties ran campaigns based in red fear and anti-socialist propaganda. The percent of votes that Labour got went up, and the percent of votes that the Liberals got went down. But in the end, enough Liberal voters threw a tactical vote to the Conservative Party to give them a majority in Parliament. In the end, the Liberals would never regain their place as the major centre-left party in British politics, and would forever be subjugated to either third or fourth place. The Conservative Party learned their lesson about calling early elections for no reason, and served the full 5-year term before giving Labour another chance to appeal to voters in 1929. The Labour Party would lead various coalition governments over the 1920s and 30s, but would not get a chance to form a majority government until Clement Attlee defeated Winston Churchill in the 1945 general election, a full 20 years after the collapse of the first Labour government.